We remember this year, 2024, starting off with the January 4th tragedy in Perry, the school shootings at the Perry High School that left a student, the school's principal, and the shooter dead. Late last week, we learned that the Dallas County Attorney says she does not plan to release a report detailing the findings of an investigation into that shooting. Yesterday, I spoke with Samantha Hernandez, Des Moines Register education reporter. She's been reporting on this story along with a number of her colleagues. Hi, Samantha.
Hi, thanks, Ben.
Tell us more about this announcement by the Dallas County Attorney and the reasoning behind not releasing a report or even a summary of the report.
So last week, following a shooting at a high school in Georgia, we reached out to the Dallas County Attorney's Office to see what the status of the investigation report was. And at that time, we learned that Dallas County Attorney believes that under state law, she is not obligated to release the report as long as it's considered to be part of an open investigation. And therefore, we, at this time, as things stand today, we may not know what all happened at Perry High School the day of the shooting.
And the Dallas County Attorney here gave a statement or issued a statement and declined any further questions, right?
Yes.
This probe was conducted by the Iowa Department of Criminal Investigation. So it's actually their findings passed on to the Dallas County Attorney, and they are not in a position to release it either?
Yeah, that is my understanding, that it's really going to be up to the Dallas County Attorney about whether any of those findings are released to the public.
Yeah. Okay, so the Dallas County Attorney says it's not necessary under Iowa law to release it for open records cases, but there's been a lot of reaction, as we can imagine, to this news that there are no plans to release the report. Tell us about some of the reaction.
The Perry Education Association has called for the release of the report. Parents whose children are survivors of the shooting have called for its release. Community members, there's just a lot of calls for this to be released. What we often see after kind of these large-scale tragedies is that the reports are used to make the school districts where they occur safer, but also law enforcement and schools around the country will take those findings and improve their own reactions and their own plans and things like that. We saw this after Uvalde. The report that was released from Uvalde was actually used here in Iowa to improve the reactions to kind of those mass shootings, mass casualty incidents. And after an incident where 30 schools across the state were swatted here in Iowa, one of the things we heard a lot was that their response was informed by lessons learned from Uvalde.
Right. And one of the points here to make, I think, and you make it in your reporting, is that, there's a detailed report that may have some details that should not be, for good reason, should not be released to the public. But we're talking here about a summary of the conclusions, not the entire report, right?
Yeah, it's really up to the county attorney to decide how much or how little of that report is to be released. Some places just release just a summary of the event. Some places release a lot of documents. It's really up to the whoever is handling that report. But in this case, we're just being told that at this time, nothing is going to be released.
So, as you pointed out, Samantha, after other school shootings across the nation, Uvalde you mentioned, but also Columbine, going way back, Sandy Hook, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Florida, there have been reports released, but there's been legal action to do that. Is that the path we're on here? Force the release through courts?
I think it's probably a little early in the process to know if that's the path we're going to take. But, one of the things we do know is that most recently, media organizations in Texas had to sue for the release of the Uvalde records. So that would be probably the most recent example that we have.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about what questions still remain about the Perry school shooting. Before we get to those questions, by reminding us what we know about the series of events that morning, January 4th, 2024?
So, what we do know is that Dylan Butler arrived at school, went into a bathroom, posted a selfie to social media before going into the lunchroom. Students were there having breakfast. It was the first day back from winter break, and killed at that time was Amir Jolliffe, an 11-year-old, and also fatally wounded was Principal Dan Marburger. He ended up passing away from his injuries 10 days later. Others were injured, including 5 students and 2 staff members. We've heard a lot in recent days from one of the mothers of those students, but there's just a lot of questions that remain.
Right. He was Dylan Butler, armed with a shotgun, also a small caliber handgun. So what are the main questions you see as still needing to be answered that may be answered by releasing a summary of this report?
There's been some speculation that Dylan Butler had been bullied. So one of the other things that we don't know about the day is what happened between Dylan Butler and Principal Marburger. He's being hailed as a hero by the school district, families, people who were there that day, even Governor Kim Reynolds. And so we don't know what actions he took that may have saved more lives that day. As I mentioned before, he did succumb to injuries from the shooting 10 days after the attack.
All right. So a lot of open questions about the motive, the circumstances, how those weapons were smuggled into the school, whether Dylan Butler was bullied would be a big question, wouldn't it?
Yeah, there are a lot of questions, particularly in the beginning, about whether Dylan Butler had been the victim of bullying. There's also questions about how he procured the weapons that were used in the shooting.
All right. And part of the context of this reporting is we remember that back in February, our legislators here in Iowa passed a law allowing the arming of school staff who are certified and granted them qualified immunity for actions with those firearms they may take in such a situation. So important to know. At some point, it seems, some more details, answers to questions from this report. Samantha, how will you and others at the Register look to follow up on this story? What will you be watching?
We're definitely watching, what parents are doing right now, because there is a growing number of parents and community members and staff members in Perry who are calling for this report to be released. We're also looking at how this issue has been handled nationally. We talked a little bit about Uvalde, but as you pointed out earlier, that there have just been numerous school shootings in recent years. And, we've not seen in many of those cases that the reports were not released.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you very much, Samantha Hernandez, Des Moines Register education reporter. She and her colleagues have been following the aftermath of the Perry shootings. Thank you, Samantha.
No, thank you for having me on, Ben.